Good evening and welcome to Quantum Network News, your source for news and analysis from a conservative perspective. I'm your host, Robert Saint. Tonight's show will cover current actions of both Russia and North Korea escalating the war in Ukraine. Putin has met with Kim Jong-un to secure the transfer of North Korean soldiers to the battlefront in Ukraine. This transfer of Korean troops to Russia are intended to be deployed as combat troops in Ukraine. North Korea made a statement today suggesting that sending troops to help Russia in Ukraine would be legal under international law. It is feared that North Korea has sent over 15,000 troops to Russia to participate in the ongoing Ukraine war. Their Vice Foreign Minister, Kim Jong-il, claimed he wasn't directly involved with defense matters, but noted that if such troop movements were happening as reported in global media, they would comply with international regulations. Still, the North Koreans did not explicitly confirm whether the deployments occurred, which is typical of the North Koreans. Just yesterday, when questioned about satellite images allegedly showing North Korean troop movements, Russian President Vladimir Putin responded evasively, making a joke that if there are images, they must show something. The United States Pentagon has stated that they have proof that North Korean soldiers have already arrived in Russia for deployment in Ukraine. Adding to this, Ukraine's President Zelensky announced today that according to intelligence reports, North Korean troops would begin combat operations in only a few days. Zelensky described this as a clear escalation by Russia and called on Western allies to put significant pressure on Moscow to reverse this deployment decision. A deployment of North Korean troops would mark a significant change in this conflict for several reasons. This would represent the first time North Korean military forces have directly participated in the conflict. This will escalate the ability of Russian forces to wage war in Ukraine. International laws and relations are being violated. This event shows us a deepening of a military cooperation between Russia and North Korea. This raises complex questions about international law and sanctions. It might affect existing UN resolutions regarding North Korea. This event has had a powerful influence on relationships between various nations involved in or monitoring this conflict. The escalation has affected international diplomatic efforts regarding the war in Ukraine. Now let's cover the military dimension regarding the North Korean military involvement in Ukraine. There has been no previous confirmed direct involvement of North Korean military in this conflict. Earlier reports focused mainly on ammunition and equipment supplies. This report directly involves North Korea in the Ukraine war. Now, you have to keep in mind that North Korea has one of the world's largest standing armies, estimated at over 1 million active personnel. And if they start sending troops to Ukraine, this will only escalate the war. The real danger here is not so apparent. Here's the hidden part of the analysis that I bring to you, my informed audience. North Korean forces are trained in Soviet-era equipment and tactics. Yeah, you heard me right. These North Korean troops, they aren't only additional infantry forces for Russia, but they are ready, trained, and ready to fight. While UN Security Council resolutions restrict North Korean military cooperation and existing sanctions prohibit arms deals with North Korea, you know that these resolutions and existing sanctions have little to no effect on the situation. Now consider this. What if 200,000 North Korean troops show up at the battlefield in Ukraine? What do you think NATO's response will be? Well, you guessed it. NATO will send more troops into the battlefield to counter the larger Russian-North Korean military presence. Also, consider that Russian troops from time to time have been observed taking prisoners of war. Many Russians consider Ukrainian soldiers to be distant family members of their mother Russia. Do you think that North Korean soldiers will feel the same way? Of course not. This could escalate the war to an entirely new level. I mean, there's not going to be any such displays of mercy from the North Korean soldiers. Now let's get into a deeper analysis. Russia and North Korea have had a short history of cooperation. Their ties have only been observed since 2023. There have been recent high-level meetings between leaders Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un that have sparked concern over the deployment of North Korean troops to Ukraine. Both countries continue to face international sanctions which have had little to no effect. This meeting has escalated tensions between Russia and Western nations. Additionally, North Korea and South Korea, China's position as a regional power, and Japan with its security concerns, well, they've all been affected. Our diplomatic coverage of these efforts finds that peace negotiations, humanitarian aid agreements, and sanctions enforcement are all going to be affected. Let me break down the potential implications for Russia-Western relations based on this deployment. Some immediate effects that are the United States will implement new sanctions against Russia. There will be an expansion of secondary sanctions affecting countries dealing with both Russia and North Korea. And there will be further restrictions on international banking and trade between Russia and the United States. Now you may ask yourself, how will military support for Ukraine be affected? Well, this event has the potential to increase Western military aid to Ukraine. There could be a possible acceleration of weapons deliveries. New types of support may also be considered. And training programs for the Ukrainian soldiers could be expanded. The diplomatic consequences are dire, folks. There will be further reductions in diplomatic relations because of this event. Possible expulsions of Russian diplomats from Western countries, and an additional isolation of Russia in international forums. There may be a possibility of a strengthened unity among NATO allies. Now, this last point is the one that concerns me the most. It could spell out our entanglement in the Ukraine war. Don't forget, we are the largest part of NATO. The political impacts of this are already being felt. This event has increased political pressure on neutral countries to choose sides. It has hardened the stance of the United States government on countries supporting Russia. There will be long-term implications. This event could cause a deeper division between Russia and the West. It could cause a more permanent shift in European security architectures, and an increased arms race could follow. There could be a longer recovery time for future diplomatic relations, and this may impose a lasting impact on arms control agreements. This event could lead to a potential new Iron Curtain scenario. Let me break down on what a potential increase in Western military aid to Ukraine might involve. It may include more advanced air defense systems, additional artillery systems and ammunition, enhanced armor and vehicle support, more sophisticated drone technology, and they will definitely receive more increased spare parts and maintenance support. The military programs, training programs, will include new specialized training for advanced weapon systems, enhanced tactical and strategic training, and more comprehensive maintenance training. There will be enhanced intelligence sharing, improved satellite and surveillance data, better real-time battlefield information, and advanced early warning capabilities, including an expansion of existing training programs from Western countries. Under logistics and infrastructure, the Ukrainians will see improved supply chain coordination, enhanced transportation networks, better maintenance facilities, and streamlined delivery systems for aid and munitions. Now, the main countries involved in the war will probably contribute as follows. The U.S. will likely lead with major aid packages. That means additional billions of taxpayer dollars sent to Ukraine. The United Kingdom will possibly increase training and equipment. Germany will potentially expand their supply of armor and air defense systems. Poland will potentially supply enhanced logistical support and training facilities, and the Baltic states will increase specialized support. Now let me break down the current potential for the implications on peace negotiations. The current state of peace negotiations have been limited to direct talks between Russia and Ukraine. And while previous attempts have showed little progress, this has been primarily caused by differing views on territorial integrity. These complex issues surround the application of security guarantees. Regarding key peace talk positions, Russia will likely possess a strengthened command with North Korean support. While Ukraine is demanding a full territorial restoration, the Western allies are supporting Ukraine's sovereignty. China is maintaining a relative neutrality as a potential mediator. The United Nations have had limited effectiveness in brokering peace talks. So what are the potential paths forward? Well, there could be multilateral peace talks, regional security discussions, step-by-step de-escalation proposals, international peace conferences, and third-party mediation efforts such as with China as a mediator. But I feel there will be major obstacles in assuring peace. For peace talks to commence, there must be trust between parties. Territorial disputes must be settled. and there must be security guarantees, and sanction relief questions must be answered. Military withdrawal terms must be established. Accountability issues must be addressed for these talks to commence. Let me break down what step-by-step de-escalation proposals might look like. First, we need to follow some initial trust-building steps. Regular military-to-military communication channels must be left open. We need local temporary ceasefires for humanitarian corridors. And we need prisoner and casualty exchanges. This will be followed by a military de-escalation phase. That's a gradual withdrawal of specific forces, including the newly minted North Korean troops. A creation of buffer zones needs to be established. There needs to be a reduction in artillery strikes and drone operations, especially the drone strikes into Russian territory. There must be a withdrawal of heavy weapons from frontline positions for this military de-escalation phase to be successful. Humanitarian measures must be met. Expanded civilian evacuation corridors for the implementation of joint humanitarian aid distributions should follow. There must be a restoration of essential services such as medical supply agreements and civilian infrastructure repair agreements. The use of international verification teams and regular status update meetings will be essential. None of these steps can be implemented without a sit-down including both leaders and possible third parties. Now, if they can get through these steps, then economic measures could be eased, such as gradual easing of specific sanctions, the restoration of trade in humanitarian goods, and infrastructure rehabilitation projects could then commence. This could lead to long-term stabilization and, most importantly, the end of the loss of innocent lives in this unnecessary war in Ukraine. I hope that this in-depth analysis of the escalation of the war in Ukraine has provided you with enough facts to convince your local leaders to do their very best to end this war. Thank you for listening tonight to Quantum Network News, your source for news and analysis from a conservative perspective. I'm your host, Robert Saint.